Check. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flare. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.TV. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm really happy to be back. We're here with you 5 days a week, same place, same time here on UCY and on the antimedia.org/radio. You can catch us there on the radio tab as well. I am joined in studio tonight by our host on Tuesdays and Thursdays, SM Gibson, who been working with us for a long time on the Anti-Media. What's up, SM?
What's going on? A lot going on in the news right now. Big news coming out of Texas with a gas leak. I know we're going to get into that here a little bit later. And then, of course, I'm sure we'll touch on the circus that's going on as well.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about all that stuff. I mean, so many things. I mean, we went through 2 primaries on Saturday, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit here because that's like the trending topic. Also joined on the line by our longtime co-host, DB Schwartz. What's up, DB?
Hey, not much, Nick. Yeah, just watching the circus like everybody else, and it keeps getting crazier and crazier. They added another ring today, and I guess we'll talk about that too. DB's been, speaking of a circus, DB's been telling me that this stuff is like professional wrestling. I mean, SM's been telling me this stuff is like professional wrestling, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. It's completely like that. I mean, look, Donald Trump went on, he's been on WWE repeatedly, and he's the exact same character. Like, that was his character when he was on wrestling, is how he's running for president. So, I mean, we're seeing it play out in real life, the theater in front of us. It's all scripted. And I think the majority of the people watching know it, and they just don't care. They just cheer their hearts out anyway.
Well, there you have it. Maybe that's the appeal that some of these guys have, is that people are just, buying into
they think it's real.
Yeah, okay, maybe you're right.
Maybe he's keeping it real by being so fake.
There you go. There's a theory we could all run with. Oh, man. So let's talk about these results. First, let's bring in everybody that we have on the call. I think we're actually joined tonight by Manny, man. What's up, Manny? How you been?
Hey, haven't talked to you guys in a while. I'm 100% good now. I'm ready to go back in the trenches, do some real stuff out there, including San Quintin. Doing a march from San Quintin all the way to Tijuana next month, And, of course, women's rights is coming up on the 6th of March down here in L.A., stuff like that, I ain't got time for no circuses, I mean, you guys are just making the ratings look good, by tuning in, you know what I'm saying? So, if you guys have nothing else better to do, Brother DB or, basically even you, Nick, where you can come to, bro. Manny's always got something to do, so just join Manny, Maybe one of these days we'll actually go close the airport down there in San Diego and stuff like that, And I'm kind of looking forward to Jake Anderson moving down here, and he'll get to see some real action and stuff like that. But other than everything else, it's, good to be back in health and stuff like that, A big shout out, obviously, to DB, S.S. Gibson, Sean Madden, Claire out there, and of course you, Nick, okay? And Jake Anderson also.
Thanks, man. We're glad to have you back. It's been a while. I know you've been, focusing on your health and stuff like that. So we're glad you're back, and looking forward to some updates from the field from you. Let's see. We also have Claire Bernish on the call. What's up, Claire?
Not much. What's up?
Oh, hanging in there. We're going to talk a little bit about these election results going on. What are the implications going forward and all that stuff. Let me try to get everyone in here, though. What's up, Jake? You there?
I'm here, yeah. Hey, everyone. Manny, it's good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. I was thinking about you. But, yeah, the election, the Alice in Wonderland, craziness, yeah. Trump actually could win the presidency. Wow.
Yeah, that's something that nobody really thought was possible. And we're not really sure if even the political establishment thought it was possible. I don't really think that they took him seriously. But Trump, to me, if you ask me, Trump is a product of the political establishment's rhetoric. They've been going around, and the Democrats and the Republicans have been like on this polarizing path for decades. I mean, they've been for decades divide and conquer, right? We talk about this all the time. Keep everybody divided so that it's easier to control. But all this extremist rhetoric that comes out, whether from the right or from the left, the Republicans or Democrats, well, all of that rhetoric is exactly why we're being, we're seeing these candidates like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, excel in the elections right now.
The establishment created both of those candidates accidentally.
Exactly, and that's the way I feel about it. I don't think Sanders is an establishment guy. I don't think Trump is an establishment guy. It doesn't mean either one of them are what's going to be needed to quote unquote fix the country or anything like that. But this is a problem of their own making, and now they're going to have to deal with those, with the issues that come home to roost from all this rhetoric, And you got Trump out there, and let's not like mix anything up here. Trump gained his fame by saying a bunch of xenophobic stuff. He opened his campaign with a speech against Mexicans. And then he cemented his position by being more or less anti-Muslim, right? Now, all that stuff aside, he said some pretty interesting things recently, which we've covered on the anti-media. I mean, he called Bush a liar for invading Iraq, saying there's weapons of mass destruction. And now today we were seeing some even more interesting stuff come out. S.M. Gibson was showing me some tweets that were coming out. What was all that about?
He and I know Claire was looking into this too. A guy that he's worked with came out, that he's known for like 40 years, came out on Friday, I believe it was, and was talking about how Trump's no fan of the Federal Reserve, and I know, he's never said this publicly, but he's no fan of the Federal Reserve. And today, magically, almost like it was coordinated, he tweets out that the Federal Reserve should be audited in a series of what seemed like angry, drunken tweets towards Ted Cruz.
So, this is, Trump's not the first candidate now to say that we need the Fed audited. I know Rand Paul's already said it. He dropped out. But Bernie Sanders also said it as well. And so this is actually kind of a good development here.
You do think of that, like there is some positive stuff coming out of the circus because the country is moving in a direction. The two front runners, whether they would do it or not, whatever, but both front runners are saying they would audit the Federal Reserve. Who ever thought we would live in a world where both front runners for president would say something?
Well, I will say one thing, that actually there's a big plus about Trump. I never thought I'd be saying that, but there's the big plus about Trump. The plus with Trump is that he basically brought where we start talking about racism. basically brought racism to the table, stuff like that, where we need to start talking about it and stuff like that. Him and the Pope obviously don't get along, which is a different story. But it's kind of glad that he was brought to the table on racism and stuff like that, and so kind of was kind of nice that the Pope actually went to the borders. I think the Pope could have done a lot more. I think basically I think he should have challenged the government a lot more in the 43 and all that stuff, But at least he basically told Donald Trump, that he needs to actually not build a wall around, the country and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's a hypocrite, not the Pope himself, but the whole system of the Vatican. They got a wall. They got a wall surrounding themselves and keeping themselves private from everybody else also. So he needs to put the wall down himself, So.
Exactly, and that's kind of a that was one of the things that was kind of funny is the Pope coming out and saying that they need to tear down the wall or not build up any walls and stuff. It's ironic that the Vatican is walled off and has a very strict immigration system itself, and so the Pope again is talking from this podium and
his ivory tower,
exactly,
his golden pulpit.
Yep, and.
Hey Nick, one thought that I want to get in here real quick while we're talking about Trump is I was thinking earlier today how unbelievably ironic it is that if you look at the two frontrunners, for the first time in probably modern political history, it looks like the frontrunner on the right could be more anti-war than the frontrunner on the left, and the frontrunner on the right could also be more progressive in terms of trade, being that Trump is against TPP, whereas Hillary is, I think we all know, fictitiously saying that she's against TPP. We all know that she's for it.
She was for it before she was against it.
And that's probably the one thing I do believe Trump on. I do believe that he's against that trade because of how he's run his businesses.
Right.
He believes in the Republic of the United States, and a lot of people have kind of turned their back on it because they're making more money in these offshore havens. But, the people are finally hip to what's going on, I think, at least the younger generations.
Definitely, but look at that. We're going to have a more hawkish Democrat than a Republican if these two front runners come out. And then we're going to have, a major battle over TPP because the establishment is going to totally freak out if both the front runners are anti-TPP. I mean, that's not going to, the corporatocracy is going to have a nervous breakdown right in front of us.
Yeah,
they'll start a war.
As we've mentioned before, I mean, Hillary Clinton is kind of, Ralph Nader called her the poster child of the military-industrial complex. She's being
Cornel West called her the Milli Vanilli of politicians or something like that.
She's being bankrolled by Wall Street, which are the financiers of the foreign policy and stuff. So
the Anchorman supports her.
At least with Hillary, there's no surprises. It's going to be 4 more years of Bush's fourth term, I guess you can call it. And that's what you're going to get with Hillary. Now with Trump, there's no telling what you're going to get. Are you going to get anti-war Trump? Are you going to get Hitler Trump? Are you going to get someone in between? I mean, what version of Trump are we going to get? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and that's
I don't think anybody knows.
And
you're
I think
you're going to get micro penis Hitler Trump.
Yeah, there you go. And that's why I think there's a lot of people that are supporting the guy because they're just like, well, you know what? Everything we've exhausted all other options, whatever. Like, who
I don't
knows?
think his real supporters though. I don't think. Obviously, Trump's had a lot of support for a long time. I haven't heard him say anything that's made any sense whatsoever at all until since he called out the Bushes at a debate a week ago.
I agree with you. Yeah,
he had support before a week ago. You know what I'm saying? So these people aren't latching on to him because of the good stuff he said in the past week.
Exactly. They latch on to him because he wants to ban Muslims from entering the country.
And I heard a rumor that he's also, this could be total conspiracy fodder, but that he's not a 9/11 truther, but he definitely wants to launch an investigation of that. If we have a Republican coming into the White House who wants to audit the Fed and launch an investigation into 9/11,
this is my theory. Don't get Ted Cruz as your vice president because the last time you had vice presidents from Texas, one was Lyndon Johnson and the second one was George Bush Sr. and both people in front of them got a bullet put in them. One died, one didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other was JFK.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there. The other story coming out from Saturday is the Las Vegas caucus for the Democrats, where Hillary won by a few percentage points. But again, we're seeing a bunch of finger pointing going on about possible, maybe not fraud, but at the very least manipulation there.
Do we have to be so? Can we just say she's cheating? Can we just say she's a dirty, rotten cheater? I'm okay with that.
I mean,
it's Hillary Clinton.
DB, man, what do you make of this?
She's a mafia don.
That's it?
That's it, man. I mean, just look at her. Look at everything. You'll see, read the document dump, and you'll see how far it goes back, starting in 78 with Whitewater, and how Bill's just kind of a stooge, and, you know, he just happened to get into presidency, and I'm sure she ran that. And she's been in control all along, man. She's a mafia don for sure, the Dixie Mafia.
So they were short on ballots at some of these precincts. There was other reports, and this may be unsubstantiated, but reports that they were busing in homeless people to caucus for Hillary Clinton, and they were like passing around cash. I mean,
yeah,
hard to say what's true, what's not.
One thing we do know that happened that is true, or should I say isn't true, is that Hillary's camp started coming out and saying they were trying to get everybody together for the caucus, and they were trying to do it bilingual in English and in Spanish. And Hillary's camp said Bernie supporters started screaming something about you should only do it in English. We only want to hear it in English. Well, there's video of it, and that didn't happen. And what do you know? Hillary Clinton's camp is just making up some lie.
And they tried to, pony out one of these civil rights matrons, Dolores Huerta, who, coincidentally got a $100,000 donation from the Clinton Foundation. So they tried to drag her up on stage and say that she gets poo-pooed off and try to make a wedge with the Latino voters. And, what I've read recently in a Washington Post thing was that it's basically 65 and over votes Clinton, 30 and under votes Bernie, and it doesn't matter. It's not a racial divide. It's an age divide. It's an information divide. It's like who goes online to get their news and who gets it from TV. There's your voter blocks.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. And that's what we're seeing happen. And again, this is the third state in a row where there's some funny business going on with the Hillary Clinton campaign. In Iowa, we saw some very similar tricks being played out with the caucus, and the caucuses are very complicated, and hardly anyone knows how they work. So it's easy to manipulate the results. In New Hampshire, we saw Bernie win in a landslide and walk away with the same amount, if not fewer, delegates than Hillary Clinton, because she's won over pretty much almost all of the superdelegates, and so the game is already rigged in her favor in one way or another. And so, this is just another...
He won 60-38 and had nothing to show for it.
Exactly. Yeah. They split it.
It wasn't even like it was close.
Yeah.
All of those young Bernie Sanders supporters just had their dreams and illusions of democracy shattered into a million pieces.
And Wasserman Schultz, when they interviewed her after, basically said, the superdelegates are there so that the establishment doesn't have to deal with a grassroots campaign like Bernie's. They're there for that.
Claire wrote an article about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's blatant. It's ridiculous.
And it didn't make as much of the news this time around like it did in Iowa, but in Nevada they had another closed caucus where they had to go this time to the picking of the cards. And
yeah, in Iowa it was a coin flip. In Nevada, if there's a tie, they literally have a deck of cards. You pull out cards, and whoever has a higher card wins.
And this is true. I think Bernie had like an 8. Bernie drew like an 8 something, whoever the Bernie representative was, and Hillary drew the ace of spades. And I'm convinced, especially being in Vegas, that David Blaine is now a part of her campaign staff.
Wait,
and don't forget the
art stuff.
Yeah.
What was that?
Is that real?
Oh, that's real.
Yeah, it's completely legit. Yeah, it's unbelievable, but it's completely real.
Yeah, it happened.
And it happened, yeah.
But Phoebe made a good point about Dolores Huerta. I mean, here she's a heavy-duty union person, fighting for us and the union, stuff like that. And then she gets herself up there on stage because, when you're taking money from basically the devil and you get up there on stage, you kind of burn your reputation and stuff like that. But, there's dirty politics on both sides also because I was also they almost conned me to go support Bernie Sanders, stuff like that. There was actually people that came to me because of my high profile as an activist and stuff like that, and that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, You'll never see me up there endorsing a politician. And I ain't got nothing against Bernie Sanders. I just don't do that and stuff like that. So, so you saw a few games by some other people too, on Bernie Sanders. I mean, they're desperate to see high profile activists up there instead of politicians, basically, So, but I don't play that game and stuff like that, And so the way I look at it is to just, whoever wins, it doesn't really matter because all the money, when you can buy a congressman or senator, that just kind of tells me the whole damn system needs to be revamped anyway,
Yeah, exactly. And even if people are out there voting, you still got all these other technicalities to deal with. I mean, the Republicans have their own set of stuff, which I'm sure is going to be rolled out if Trump ends up walking away with the popular vote. And we're going to see what kind of games they're going to play with that. On the other hand, with the Democrats, we're already seeing the superdelegate thing play out, and Claire has a great article on that. Claire, can you tell us just real quick about the superdelegates and what they function for and what it means for the voting system in the U.S.?
Well, superdelegates were created as they aren't pledged delegates. They have the ability to switch their who they back up until the actual convention. So they could be, say, for Bernie Sanders now and actually switch their who they want to be the nominee at the convention. So they were created in order to prevent a grassroots candidate that's unelectable from actually ending up with the nomination. And that is, I guess, in my opinion, the secondary function of that is to prevent a non-establishment candidate from actually making it anywhere under the guise of having a divided party and an unelectable candidate. So they really have an out with Hillary. These delegates who are not yet, quote-unquote, pledged can back her all the way up until the last second. And even if it looks like it's going to be Bernie, it can suddenly be Hillary.
So technically, the popular vote can be nullified by superdelegates. So that's
technically speaking, yes. It's unlikely, but it
How
is.
Why is it unlikely? We
possibility.
literally just saw it happen in New Hampshire. It just happened less than 2 weeks ago.
Right, but if realistically, if Bernie Sanders, if what happened in New Hampshire happened in, 75% of the remaining states, I think it's unlikely.
You'd be thinking twice.
Yeah, I think a lot of superdelegates would flip if what we're seeing. I think the bigger danger to Bernie Sanders is the media groupthink that's going on right now, where you see the momentum shift just like birds in a flock. One day they'll be saying, "Oh, it looks like Sanders has got the momentum," and then the next day it's, "Well, these super delegates, I don't think Bernie can do it," and it's just like this groupthink. And it to me, it doesn't matter how intense they campaign. It doesn't matter how true the message is. They keep saying he's like a one-note candidate, even though the note is so important and to so many people. It's like the medium is the message now. It doesn't even matter what the content is. It's just all about how you package it. That's all the media cares about.
The media realizes too that the momentum that these candidates have is created by them, and I think what we're seeing with the Democratic side right now is similar, I think, to what we saw with the Republicans in 2012 with Ron Paul, and Ron Paul getting screwed state by state by state. And I think that was the end of that. Now look at the craziness we're seeing. We're going to see this, I think, very soon in the Democrat Party, 4 to 8 years. Some crazy candidate will pop out of that side. Mark Cuban, Mike Bloomberg, somebody nuts.
Excuse me. Hello.
So we have a caller on the line. Let's go over to the caller from 478. What do you make of all this stuff going on with this election?
Well, I was just strolling through Facebook and I saw your post to call in about the jobs being exported from the USA to all around the world, and I wanted to comment on that.
Sure. I mean, that has plenty to do with this election. Go for it.
I mean, the first thing is that, it's cheaper to export our jobs because the pay in America has not kept up with the inflation in America. So we're
hey,
exporting
caller from
jobs.
478, can you mute your radio behind you? Sorry, we're hearing a little feedback.
Okay, is that better? Hello?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to comment on the jobs that's being exported out of America to all around the world. And, of course, this is going to happen because of competition in these other countries. They're paying their workers less money, and the competition is just fierce. Everybody's out to make money. In this country, we haven't had a pay increase in the minimum wages. You just can't live off of that. It's not a living wage. So, the thing is, either we're going to adjust to inflation or we're going to adjust to a minimal living wage. Now, if in 1950 you can buy a car for, say, $4,000, but today that same car is $25,000, but our pay increase hasn't risen, then of course, there's going to be some kind of problem. Now, either we're going to have to do one or two things. Either inflation is going to have to come down, or we're going to have to raise the minimum wage. Now if we don't want to raise the minimum wage, then inflation has have to come down to meet these other countries. I mean, in Mexico, you can live off of $20,000 like a king, but in $20,000 here in America, it won't last you 6 months. So this is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a huge problem, and that's one of the things that we're facing here. Is we talked about it last show, in fact, on Wednesday, about like the automation too, and how the workforce is being automated, and that is going to keep like a downward pressure on the price of labor and stuff like that. And so it's hard to increase pay for a workforce when a lot of companies can just say, hey, well, instead of dealing with paying all these people all this money, paying for their health care, retirement, pension, all this stuff, why not just replace them all with robots? You know what I mean?
I think the caller just made a great point, though, because, it started out talking about, countries going overseas. Well, we're talking about raising the minimum wage, and we're already talking about robots and everything else. But you said it, it's inflation. We shouldn't be trying to keep up with inflation. We should be trying to, that's the problem as far as the monetary standard goes.
Yeah, the inflation is...
Which goes back to the Federal Reserve, which we were talking about at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
With both candidates, Bernie and Trump, at least mentioning the Federal Reserve.
But let me comment on this robot replacement. If we had a real government, then it's okay to replace workers with robots. But then that should free up Americans to live free. I mean, robots shouldn't replace our earnings, but it should replace our ease of life. When you look at the Walmarts and you look at all of these other big companies that's basically making slaves out of us, it's because that we are not keeping up with technology. Technology is making slaves out of us. Now, if the government would compete with Walmart, with GM, with Chrysler, with all of these other things, instead of putting all of this money into the military expense, then everybody could live a quality life. Now, if you want to replace and automate all of these manufacturing jobs with robots, then we just can't throw away these people. We have to replace that with the quality of life and free up our life. It's not so much that the money or the monetary gain, but it's the quality of life. And this is what the government should be fighting for. If you're going to replace us with robots, then give us a freedom to live and make it without working.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, and we brought this up briefly in our last program, but there's a philosopher by the name of Buckminster Fuller that talked about a similar prospect to what you're mentioning here. But the issue that we have right now is that, unfortunately, the robots and all this technology, the AI, whatever we want to call it, the automation that's going on, it's being more or less monopolized by a handful of companies, Google, Amazon, and a few other big robotics companies that are pretty much not going to cede their power. I mean, they're not going to give that back to everybody. And these same companies are pretty much the same ones bankrolling the politicians too. And you got Hillary Clinton, you got Rubio, both of them deeply in the pocket of corporate interests and stuff like that. And so these are the candidates that the political establishment are trying to get elected. And so when these type of candidates are elected, well, they're going to do the bidding for the companies that are doing all the automation and replacing all the jobs.
Yeah, I want to ask you this. What do you think how does this tie into the picture that's been going around on social media all day of Mark Zuckerberg, walking down the aisle of some conference, and everybody's just tapped into their digital world? Yeah, into the virtual reality. I mean, that was pretty crazy. I saw that picture, and it just kind of freaked me out. I sent the story over to Jake to take a look at, because I know Jake likes to uncover a lot of this sci-fi, future technology stuff. Jake, what'd you think about that, man? That was pretty crazy. I mean, literally, it's a picture of Zuckerberg walking down this aisle, and every single person in the room has got these virtual reality goggles on, and they're just like sitting there. And I don't know if it's the angle of the picture, but it looks like a lot of people are in the room.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, Facebook, he invested very heavily in a virtual reality company. I can't remember the name of it now, but
Oculus Rift, I think it is.
Yeah, it may be Oculus. Yeah, but they know that the tide is turning in terms of entertainment, and they know that virtual reality. He knows that virtual reality is the next phase. So yeah, that was probably. I was surprised to see that. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that was a leak or something, because it looked like a kind of a beta test, almost like they were doing a beta test of some. But yeah, I mean, that's the future, man. I mean, we're gonna be, even 5 years from now, I think when you walk down the street and you see people, I think they're going to be gesticulating to the air, and it's because they're going to be doing the kind of gestures we do to our smartphones, but they're going to be doing it in the air, because augmented reality is going to have created an interface in front of their line of vision. I think that's going to be like the de facto way of living in certainly 10 years, maybe even 5.
There's going to be a hell of a lot of perverts on the street.
Well, it sounds like the myth of the emperor who had no clothes, and everybody exhorted him because they didn't want to feel like they were left out of the loop. When you think about virtual reality and all of this stuff, it's just machine. It's not reality. It is what we're thinking and what these machines are projecting to us. But in the real world, I mean, it's a whole different story. But to get back on what you were talking about before I even interjected about this whole election and Donald Trump and even the Pope and all of this, Donald Trump said something to the Pope which resonated with me. You want to condemn Donald Trump for building a wall around the U.S. to keep Mexicans and whoever else out, but there's a wall around the Vatican. So, you can't cast stones if you're living in a glass house. And to me, it's the same thing that Jesus said when he told the Pharisees and Sadducees in the day to tear the temple down in Jerusalem. They didn't believe him, and they didn't tear it down. He said, tear it down, and I'll build it up in 3 days. So it's like everybody wants to criticize, but nobody has any solutions and nobody has any answers. But the answer is in our face all of the time. We can't keep running away to a fairy tale solution. Virtual reality and all of this other stuff is just that. But the reality is that we have to live in the now. And then now we're looking at the government, and the government is basically enslaving us. It's selling us out. You know, if you're going to take, for instance, the iPhone. Now, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, nobody can crack that. The encryption. I mean, what are we paying them for? Now, I don't blame, Apple for not wanting to jeopardize the security of every other Apple iPhone user, because, if the government can't crack it, then that's a perfect example why they want it.
Yeah, seriously. And the other thing is, like, these guys' jobs is to stop terrorism. You know what I mean? Not come through and turn the country into an Orwellian police state after the fact. It's like, why are they already spending billions of dollars and spying on everybody's metadata? Thank you, Edward Snowden, for letting us know about that. When they can't even stop this shit. I mean, the shit goes on. It's like, oh, well,
Snowden's been tweeting out that they could do it in 5 seconds.
Yeah, and Snowden's over here saying, like, hey, this is all a show. I mean, I don't know what the FBI is doing, acting like they can't crack this thing. And it's like, well, as the caller said, why in the hell are we giving them any money if they can't even stop this shit? And again, back to the whole Trump thing and the whole, well, Bush kept us safe thing. It's like, no, Bush didn't keep us safe. 9/11 happened on Bush's watch.
I'm sorry. It's probably maybe the only time I'll ever applaud Donald Trump. But when Jeb Bush said, my brother kept us safe, and he said, yeah, your brother was the president on 9/11. How'd that work out?
Yeah, exactly, man. And so it's like, why are we allowing these guys to sit here and tell us, oh, well, we're going to erode all of your privacy, all of your liberties, so that we can keep you guys safe. But then, oh, yeah, by the way, we're not actually going to keep you safe. We're just going to spy on you. And so, it is a huge deal. Great point. Caller from 478. We're going to have to move on. We got another caller on the line. First, I want to jump into a little more about Hillary Clinton, because, as I've said before, I'm not a huge Bernie Sanders fan or anything like that, but Hillary Clinton is just egregious when it comes to most things. Now we're, thanks to some clever reporting over on Common Dreams, they put one and one together and found out that Hillary Clinton more or less helped enable a military coup down in Honduras. And so this is a story that should be getting out there. I mean, we're talking about the woman that just won, whether through nefarious means or not, the Nevada caucus, that is literally supporting military coups in Central America. I mean, I thought this stuff, I thought it was like Reagan and Nixon and all these guys, that these horrible, people that did these, military coups in Latin America.
Reagan and Nixon both look like doves.
She does. And so we got a story on the anti-media from February 20th, how Hillary Clinton enabled a 2009 military coup in Honduras. So this is pretty recent, too. But basically, she continued, even though she knew that there was a military coup that took place over a democratically elected government in Honduras, she continued sending aid, and for all we know, it was military aid as well. And in fact, later on, in her book, she basically said that she was, trying to make the former president of Honduras irrelevant, and so I'm not sure that we should be electing a person that's willing to topple government simply because they disagree with them or because they think it's not in their economic or geopolitical interests. And that's exactly what we get with Hillary Clinton.
I hate to keep going back to Donald Trump, but when he tells the truth, they want to boo him. But then when he's lying like hell, then, they're cheering him. But honestly, clearly, Hillary Clinton needs to be in jail. Ted Cruz should not even be allowed to run for president. And so these are the things that we really need to be looking at. And I saw a TV article of Hillary Clinton just a couple of hours ago, and I swear to God, she plagiarized everything that Bernie Sanders has been saying from the beginning. And, it's like, are these people that stupid? Don't they realize what's really going on? The media and all of this other bullshit propaganda is psyching people out to the point where we don't even realize what's going on anymore.
Exactly, and this thing in Honduras is it's bad. I mean, a military coup. She supported it. It's horrible, And now I just saw an article that we're sending special ops people down to Honduras to train their police on how to crack down on drug crimes because all of the refugees are trying to leave Honduras and come to the United States, right? And so,
But
I mean,
but to be honest, all of that started in the Reagan administration, and to be fair about it, it went on, and that's where all of the crack cocaine came from, and to say, and this is why I don't agree with Donald Trump, because you got people walking across countries to get to America for a better quality of life because they're being killed by drug mafias. So you can't blame them if we cause that problem. Same thing in Iraq and in Syria. All of this is going on because we caused this mess. There was no bombs or weapons of mass destruction. I really feel bad for those people, because they have to walk across countries to other countries that don't want to accept them. And it's getting to the point where, they're turning their backs on them because they don't have the capability of supporting them. We caused this mess. And like you said, when Donald Trump stood up against Jeb Bush, they booed him. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with America?
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And this is one of my biggest things here about, first of all, the immigration and also the refugee crisis. As you mentioned, a lot of it stems back to Ronald Reagan. Even before that, I mean, the Monroe Doctrine, it's been in place since the late 1800s, where the U.S. has asserted itself in all things Western Hemisphere. And we've more or less, I mean, look how many times we've tried to invade Cuba. I mean, all the countries in the Caribbean. Pretty much most of Latin America, we've supported military coups in there. The only two countries that haven't fallen under the Monroe Doctrine is Venezuela and Cuba, and look how we treat them. We put economic embargoes. We collapse their economy. Look at Venezuela right now. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, Venezuela! Look how bad socialism is." Maybe that's part of it, but the other half of it is we've had a horrible economic embargo over top of Venezuela for the longest time, simply because we disagree with their philosophy on government. And this has been going on since the late 1800s. And Hillary Clinton, we know she's willing to step up to bat for the Monroe Doctrine, which is a genocidal policy, has led to the ruining of several Latin American countries. I want to bring Manny in on this because I know he's actually got some experience with what's gone on there with the U.S. sphere of influence in Latin America. I mean, Manny, what do you think of what the caller was just saying?
Well, it's just basically, we're talking about Hillary Clinton, doing a coup and in Honduras and all that.
Sorry, Manny, we can't hear you that well. Can you speak up a little more?
Oh yeah, we're talking about how Hillary Clinton did, the coup in Honduras and stuff like that. The only problem is she wasn't by herself. When she, basically there's other people that need to come down too and pay the price just like her. But unfortunately nobody's paying the price for anything. And so. But I mean, when you got people in Venezuela that can't even get a damn a roll of toilet paper because the embargoes and stuff like that, that's pretty bad. I mean, that's really a sad thing and stuff like that. And when we got, like what we did to Libya, I mean, it's in worse shape than it's ever been, and stuff like that. So it just really, and what's happening in Mexico, I'm sentimental to it because I've seen how much Mexico has changed, and I mean, these cops are so damn equipped down there right now against our people, the 43 and all this thing that's going on. And it's just crazy, and we had this lady from Michoacan using government helicopters to go see the Pope and stuff like that, all the corruption, and it's just crazy, what's going on in our Latin American countries. That's why the CIA is not like, especially in Guatemala, don't even talk about the CIA down there and stuff like that, and so that's one of the things that, and so the only, and then just, when we talk about this immigration thing too, we always blame Latin American countries. Well, you know what? Forget about immigration coming down here. I tell people, your companies are leaving to other countries because they can exploit people down there, like they are in Mexico right now. You can get somebody to work 8 hours for $8, 8 hours. And I'm talking about hard 8 hours, not just, Mickey Mouse 8 hours, hardcore 8 hours, for $8. Damn, seriously, companies are moving out and stuff like that, So that, to me, that's to me, that could cause more national security problems than anything, because, you know, you never know what a company from there can ship over here, you know, in disguise and stuff like that, you know. And so it just, you know, so it's a big problem. It really is, you know, and we have to basically, you know, vote with our dollars, you know, and be, you know, spectacle of what we do with our dollars and stuff like that, and educate ourselves more. I think it's very important, you know. And when I say educate yourself in the whole world and stuff like that, you know, like the brother saying America. Well, you know, what part of America are you talking about? You know, I know what he was saying, the United States. I just wish people would say the United States, you know, because you can't blame the whole continent of America for what these bastards are doing here, you know.
Exactly, and you know, it's not only is it literal imperialism, whether we're talking about Honduras, Guatemala, the rest of Latin America, Brazil. I mean, we've toppled the government in Brazil, Chile. I mean, you name it, every country down there except for Venezuela. The U.S. has had a hand in establishing their own kind of friendly governments down there. Whether it's through that or whether it's through economic imperialism like NAFTA, man. NAFTA has destroyed the Mexican economy, put 20,000 businesses out of business, drove all the peasant farmers from Mexico, drove them up north across the border. And so, you know, as the caller was saying, it's like, it's our own policies creating not only the immigration crisis, but the refugee crisis. And then we want to...
Who was the president when NAFTA got passed?
Clinton. Bill Clinton. That's right. And so, you know, we sit here and we blame the refugees and we blame the immigrants for them coming here after we just got done destroying their countries, toppling their governments, overthrowing their governments, you know, destroying their economies and things like that. And then we want to blame those people, you know, and this is the problem with people consuming this mainstream media stuff. It's because, you know, NAFTA was sold as a deal that's going to, it's going to create all these jobs. We just saw that air conditioning company, Carrier, just moved their huge operation of 1,400 jobs down to Mexico, where they're, like, as Manny said, they're going to go down there and pay somebody $1 an hour to go bust their ass all day, not get any benefits, not have any standards of living, not have any labor protections, not have any sick days, not even have a pot to piss in. I mean, literally. And so, you know, we're taking imperialism to a whole new level right now.
But to be fair about it, how much is that $1 a day going to take them compared to our $1 a day? You know, you can't even buy a bag of potato chips for $1 nowadays. But if you go to South America and Central America, $1 a day will probably take you way further than what it would take us. So this is where the income equality comes in. You know, either you're going to adjust inflation or you're going to give us a higher pay. You know, when you look at Congress and they vote in their own raises and they shut down the government that continue to get paid, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, when do I get to start doing that? Nick, hey, we're all right now going to take a vote for a pay raise. I'm voting for me to get one. So
I wish we could do it. But no, you're right. I mean, it is an income issue. Jake, I want to go back to you. I know you had something to add to this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think it's going to be interesting when and I think it is going to be Hillary versus Trump. I think Trump is going to excoriate her over NAFTA and make her stand up. She's going to be defending her husband's, you know, NAFTA bill or NAFTA trade agreement, which he spearheaded. And Trump is going to, you know, rake her over the coals for that at the same time as we have this TPP discussion going on. I'm really just fascinated by this idea that the Republican candidate is going to be a more progressive candidate in regards to trade than the Democrat. I mean, this neoliberal trade agenda has just gotten so out of hand with the Democrats, with, you know, Clinton pushing NAFTA and now Obama pushing TPP. It's utterly confounding to me, but interesting.
It is, man. It really is. And so, you know, it's a real turn of the tables here. And we're going to have to wait and see. When's the next vote coming up, Scott?
Tomorrow they're doing the Nevada caucus for
the Republicans tomorrow. We're going to be keeping an eye on that. We'll be talking about that tomorrow night on the radio show. But I want to move on from this politics stuff real quick.
Let me just one more thing about, you know, basically how things are changing. Just like in the past 2 years right now, like Hollywood, for instance, is starting to change. It's becoming where the Chinese companies are basically owning the studios now. You know, they basically buying Legendary, Universal. You know, we'll have basically part of their business in China. Disney is opening up next month in somewhere else in China, stuff like that, And so all the, and so now, basically a lot of the Chinese companies are buying out, like AMC theaters. That's why when you vote with your dollars, you got to find out who owns those companies, AMC, for instance, you go to AMC theaters now, they're owned by the Chinese, and stuff like that, And the reason I found out is because I've been taking a lot of heat, for talking outspoken. I never thought I was ever going to be banned from a country. I'm banned from going to China, but that's a different story. You know what I mean? It's just I'm hardcore against Chinese, and here we're doing business with them like crazy. So they're basically taking over Hollywood in a lot of ways, And so, those are the things. People always blame Mexico for supposedly we taking their jobs and stuff like that, but nobody ever talks about the Chinese taking over. And I have nothing personal against them. It's just a fact, fact of what's really happening, and people need to educate themselves of what's really going on, and said before they open their mouth and just don't believe what they hear from from rumors. Find out who owns those companies. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, and China is the biggest country in the world by population. They've got a huge labor force to exploit, and they have. I'd say China has even lower labor standards in Latin America and Mexico. And again, it was Bill Clinton that helped open up that trade. And it was Hillary Clinton in the recent debates that praised Henry Kissinger for his role in opening up those trade routes with China. And we're dealing with a fascist, authoritarian country that does is highly censors its public, highly controlled political process. It's not a democracy at all. We do all kinds of business with them. The U.S. government. And U.S. corporations do all kinds of business with China. If we gave a damn about human rights like we claim we do, we wouldn't be doing any business with that country, but we do. And subsequently we've turned China into basically the second greatest superpower in the world because of all the economic stuff that we do with them. And now look what it's doing. It's creating a big monster. And now China is probably going to be the next big threat to the world after the United States, and so we're gonna have to deal with that. But
and they're totally symbiotic on us, Nick. That's what a lot of people may not understand. Is if either of us collapse, the other one does too. Economically, so there's kind of that going as a bipolar world right now.
Yeah, and Nick kind of said this real quick, but I want to make sure all the listeners know this: that Henry Kissinger, and Richard Nixon made the whole China thing happen. And Hillary Clinton was praising Henry Kissinger.
Yeah,
that's her mentor.
Yeah. And Bill Clinton really opened it up in the 90s.
That's it. So she's got two strikes against her on that.
There you go.
She's a pure globalist, and when people don't understand that's not good for the American people.
No, it's not.
But the debt that we owe China is another thing. I live in Georgia. It's a southern state. Everybody knows that Georgia is southern. Now, anytime you drive up a main street in Atlanta, Georgia, and all of the signs are in Chinese, you don't know what the hell they're saying, but they're in Chinese. Another example is that China bought the Sears Tower in Chicago. They're buying up the United States. We owe them so much. So either it's going to come to a head, like the person was saying earlier. If the economy in China collapses, it's going to be a worldwide event. When their stock market crashed, they shut down everything just to minimize the effect.
Yeah.
So either we're going to have to deal with this, or we're going to have to. It seems to me like either. To me, it looks like we're going to go to war with China because we can't pay off that debt.
And you can start to see the cracks in the world economy by looking at the bridge economy, which is Japan. Japan's economy is crashing. The banks are starting to do a negative interest. And whenever you get negative interest, that means there's going to be a bank run. So everybody's pulling their money out now and hiding it under their mattress, like literally.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, negative interest means that you put money in the bank and it's going to reduce month to month. Your money is going to go down. So, in theory, they were trying to do it to encourage people to spend their money to stimulate the economy. Of course, this is like an artificial, government-induced stimulus, and it's probably not going to work out the way they're hoping it's going to.
Well, people there save. They don't spend like we do.
And here's another real quick comment about China. you know, the way Donald Trump's rhetoric has been against China and the trade there, wars start over economic reasons. And the last country we want to go to war with is China.
Or maybe we do.
Possibly.
No, we don't.
I don't know. How do we know what we have? I mean, the stuff.
If we go to war with China, you know, China is they're chumps with Russia. So if we go to war with them, it's going to cause a world war. You know, now it's one thing to go to war with China, but to fight China and Russia and then Korea too, because they all are going to join in.
They want that, and I know they do.
That's the new axis that's building here. Is we got China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and that's one axis, and then the other axis is NATO. And you know, it's getting pretty heated over there. Now, I saw some encouraging news today that Putin put out a statement saying that he called Obama and that they came to an agreement for somewhat of a ceasefire over in Syria. It won't apply to any UN designated terrorist group, which mean ISIS and al-Nusra, the Al-Qaeda operative out there. Will still be getting bombed, but there may be, and they said maybe by this weekend, there could be a ceasefire. Who knows? You know, ceasefires a lot of times fall through. A lot of times they just don't work at all.
And ironically, we're only supposedly fighting ISIS, so that's a whole nother rabbit hole in and of itself.
No,
thank you.
So before we get too late here in the show, we only have a few minutes left. We had a huge article in the Anti-Media today regarding a bunch of these gas leaks over in Texas. Now, the one in California at Porter Ranch, Southern California, they recently capped it off. We're hoping that it's going to fix the problem. I know they said it was a temporary fix, but for now, it seems like the one in Southern California, which was just enormous, it was being compared to BP. Now that seems to be capped off. But in Texas, in and around the Dallas area, there's a huge leak. The title of the article is called Unstoppable Gas Leaks in Texas, Even Worse than California's. And the media is silent about this because, you know, the thing is that combined, all these leaks are bigger than the one in Aliso Canyon, but nobody's talking about it, you know. And so Claire wrote a great article on this about this today. We only have a few minutes left. Claire, what can you tell us about this story?
Well, first of all, the methane that's being spewed is due to fracking and the entire drilling for natural gas in two shales, Eagle Ford Shale and the Barnett Shale in Texas, which Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex sits on top of the Barnett Shale. And the methane and other, like benzene, just like out in California, are being spewed, like, constantly, all the time. This amounts to more than what was going on in California at its peak, but because Texas is such a pro-big oil state, there aren't regulations in place to really control this or even track how much is being leaked. So this is a huge, huge problem, and it's ongoing. It's not going to change because the politicians are pro-industry. The regulations aren't really going to do anything because the industry is supposed to, quote-unquote, police itself, which everybody knows that won't work. So this is a really, really huge problem, and it's contributed to a global rise in methane around the world that the U.S. is mostly responsible for.
And, you know, this has to do with the fracking bubble that has been going on, and I think we may be seeing it popping here, at least the beginning stages of a pop bubble. And fracking has kind of taken over, taken root all around the country, and it's turned the U.S. into the largest producer of natural gases in the world now. But, this stuff is going to have major implications on the health of the people over there, the long term. I mean, a lot of this stuff is cancer causing, and they also we just covered last week about how fracking, a lot of the chemicals that are pushed back into the water are also carcinogenic. So not only is this stuff causing cancer in our drinking water, now there's methane poisoning coming out, and not only that, but benzene and all these other chemicals that are related to fracking that are shown to likely cause cancer. So we gotta keep an eye on what's going on out there near Dallas. Anyone living out there, pay close attention. I know some of our team members have close family and stuff in the area, and so that's really concerning to us. But again, we got to be careful about what we do to this planet and what technology we're employing, and be a lot more vigilant about how we do it. We're coming to the end of the show here.
But it goes back to technology, doesn't it? It goes back to technology. I mean, the big energy companies, they keep on with this.
But hey,
They don't
want to
invest in solar.
We gotta end the show here. Thank you all for tuning in.
Yo, here we go, go through the stereo.